Hi, I'm Dan Lutz, and I'm doing a series of articles entitled Worldwide Civil War. This installment is called Us versus Them. Worldwide Civil War. Us versus them. Our whole life we have only known war. Often it seems at a distance, but sometimes it hits home and our loved ones are killed. We learned in history class about wars, World War I and II, the Korean War, Vietnam, and even some more ancient wars. The Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Spanish War, and the Civil War. We get a picture of war from television, and it appears to be all around us. This envelopment leads us to feel numb and desensitized to war. We have an uneasy feeling, yet still, we feel safe from dying from war as we go through our daily lives. We go to our jobs, or when we're out enjoying our lives with our friends and family. We do not see this invisible war, but we feel it, an ongoing war against the people of the planet. It stays invisible to us because the controllers of the war, the puppet masters, stay behind the scenes in the shadows. They use their control systems to divert attention from them and to focus our attention on the others. They point the others out to us for us to call them names, but above all, they tell you not to listen to the others. Their core tactic is to divide and conquer. There are two sides to every war. There are maybe many players in this game of war, but there's always just two sides. They just need to name each side, so we self-divide from one another. There's an easy way for us to name the two sides, us versus them. Normally, we simplify a name, the Nazis, the Americans, the Allied forces, the North, the South, but who are the players of this civil war? What are the names? Us versus them? Who are them? I could assign many names to them, such as the rich, the bankers, the Illuminati, the royals, the bloodline families, the military-industrial complex, the deep state, the cabal, and the Illuminati. Recently, President Trump started calling them the invisible enemy. Did you notice? I did. What did you think Trump was talking about when he mentions 193 countries coming together to fight an invisible enemy? Did you think he was referring to a virus? Trump is our leader. Trump has unified 193 countries against this invisible enemy, but the invisible is what they are. It's not who they are. Trump is giving them a name, and he's great at naming things. Trump named them the deep state. This is a point in time where everything is about to change. In the heat of battle, we now call them the deep state. Worldwide, the name deep state is used because it gives a broad name of who they are. They reach deep into every part of our lives. Yes, it has many groups and factions, but it has a single agenda: worldwide domination. They have held this goal for a very, very, very long time. We could easily go back thousands of years by following the money and the power, their manipulations of country against country and man against man. But we're only going to look back to the founding of America. The creation of America was the first time a country was created for the people, for the independence of an individual man and woman, where people had rights given by God, and none of these could be taken away by the government. Since that time, a freedom movement has gained a footing on earth. America is where people could bring abundance to their own life, and this gave them power. Power to create what they want, and free time to have their say in matters. America, with its ideas of freedom, God-given rights, and real money that they did not borrow from with interest from a private bank, empowered its people. America was created as a republic with gold and silver as its only money, issued from the U.S. Treasury, and a constitution that protected the people. And this presented the deep state's first real threat. The deep state did not just start their plan to remove our freedoms recently. It started as soon as America began. What the deep state cannot control, they must destroy. America, with its independence, its ideals, and its culture of freedom, is the opposite of who and what they are. They are part of an order that insists on you following their orders or else. They have a plan and a structure that cannot be changed. For the deep state to be successful with their plan, they must turn all that we hold dear into negatives. Only then can they reshape the world in their image. The deep state need to handle this threat as they always have done. They used the creation of a central bank, which would lend money to America at interest. In the beginning years of the Republic, 2 of these central banks were created, but each time the people rejected them as soon as their 20-year charters expired. The deep state reacted to the removal of the second central bank by pushing the War of 1812. Even this war did not bring back the central bank, because the people still remembered what the central banks are and what effect they had on society. The deep state would try another tactic. They would need to control the government by placing their own people in places of power, those that would be aligned to them and not to the people. After 50 years of interest-free money, the people again found themselves fighting the deep state attempt to control the people through infiltration. Waves of attorneys were being elected as governors, congressmen, and senators to fulfill the goal to install a central bank. Their oaths as attorneys, taken as a member of the Bar, British Accreditation Registry, was to the Crown and gave them a title of nobility as Esquire. The people combated this infiltration of the American government by the way of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, the Titles of Nobility Act. This original 13th Amendment prevented titles of nobility or honor from holding offices of trust. This stopped the deep state from controlling the American government. The deep state of that time did not just give up their plans. They orchestrated the Civil War to stop the ratification of the 13th Amendment, the Titles of Nobility Act. This did not work because the threshold of the number of states needed to ratify was met during the war, and the Titles of Nobility Act was adopted as part of the Republic's Constitution. The deep state had another big problem. During the Civil War, President Lincoln needed money to fight the war. He created a new interest-free money called greenbacks through the National Banking Act of 1863. The deep state had to counter both of these obstacles to their plans with 2 major moves. First, by the creation of the new corporate entity, the United States of America, all caps, to play the role of the government. And second, they needed to assassinate Lincoln. The new USA corporate government gave the deep state the ability to add a new overlay constitution and hid the original 13th Amendment, Titles of Nobility Act, with a different 13th Amendment that appeared to abolish slavery, but instead set the stage to enslave everybody. Regardless that the North had won the war, and the reason for the war was the 13th Amendment, Titles of Nobility Act, the deep state narrative was an anti-slavery movement had won. The deep state pushed a narrative to bring the country together under their anti-slavery 13th Amendment. They used their ability to control people through the mainstream media of that time, the newspapers. The deep state also manipulated influential people through their well-placed followers that held seats in many circles of power. They created an overlay structure of control through this fabrication of a corporate entity to run a governmental democracy with bylaws instead of a constitution. They were able to govern and control the people. The corporate 13th Amendment to abolish slavery actually set the stage for the deep state to harvest the people's energy through their efforts. But to complete the enslavement of the people, the deep state needed a private central bank. But this would take a while. The greenbacks were funding the rebuilding of America, and the people remember the central banking systems were removed twice, and why. The central bank takes everything from the people and gives nothing back. It took a while, but the deep state made a plan. In 1913, they set up a stock market crash to force the country into bankruptcy. This intimidated the government officials to accept not just a central bank, but also one that used the people as the collateral. The new banking system is called the Federal Reserve. Its name gave it a sense of being owned by the United States, but it was just a disguise. It was a private bank set up to lend money with interest attached. The birth certificates created a way for the people to be used as the collateral for the USA corporation to borrow money from the new central bank. This caused the country's people to again be in debt. The deep state had succeeded and created the new debt slavery system. After 2 world wars, the deep state was ready to expand this new debt slavery system into a worldwide financial system under the United Nations. Convincing all the other countries to incorporate themselves and to set their sovereignty aside was not going to be easy. Or was it? The enticement to join the United Nations as an incorporated entity was the same reason why anyone wants to join a massive pyramid Ponzi scheme. Greed. Greed is why all Ponzi schemes are joined. The United Nations was equipped with a magic money system to satisfy the greedy hunger for money. There's a secret agenda behind this whole pyramid business structure of a corporation as a subcorporation under another. Sounds the same as a multi-level company, doesn't it? This pyramid structure passes the profits up to the top as any MLM does. This is the way they transferred all the assets of the world into the hands of the deep state, those few at the top of the pyramid. The countries, if they knew what the real plan was, the secret agenda, do you think that they would have joined willingly? No? Well, maybe they would. Greed is very convincing. They were convinced by the magic money system. The conversations around the world at the time asked the same question. What would be the benefit if countries did join the United Nations and give up their people's sovereignty? The answer was abundance in every country. They would receive from the magic money system. Many people were upset, but their leaders were controlled by both greed and blackmail, but ultimately went along. What was offered in great abundance to those countries? Pretty paper money in exchange for assets. This is akin to the Pilgrims giving pretty beads to the Native Americans in exchange for the island of Manhattan. The abundance of the money flowing into their hands at many times the value of whatever asset they were registering. Did they realize they were transferring ownership to the holding trust facility of all the assets? I'm not sure if they knew, or if they thought it was just a way for the world to come together, or if they were just greedy. All the countries willingly went along with this plan for the benefit of their people, for the abundance of their countries, for them to move forward together with the other nations, all united under the grand-sounding idea of the United Nations. This is what was sold to them. It was a lie, a big con job that was perpetrated on all those that believed in those grand ideas. This is how the Ponzi scheme worked. A country would file a humanitarian project with the World Bank. The World Bank would approve the project and issue a project number. The country was required to put up something of value and register it as an asset to back the project. The asset value was only a small fraction of the total cost of the project. Remember, to register means to transfer ownership of that asset. This has to be of gold, land, treasure, and would thereafter be owned by the trust. A big carrot was offered to the countries for their assets. The country contributed to the project an asset. Maybe it was only 1/100th of the value of the humanitarian project. Let's say there was a $100 million project, and the country offered $1 million asset in land, gold, or treasure. That project would be packaged up along with many other humanitarian projects to be traded by special Federal Reserve licensed traders. Until recently, I believe that there were just 7 of these licensed traders, but over the last few years, an 8th trader was added to handle the global currency reset. They would trade these projects amongst themselves on this country-level trading platform, from one trader to the next trader, and then to the next trader. As they trade each small piece of the project, it is marked up and sold from one trader to the next. These pieces sold and marked up and resold to the next trader. That trader takes what he receives and now does the same thing. In a big circle, each trader sells off pieces at a higher price. This continues until it generates a $100 million value for the entire project. The project itself is now considered an asset valued at $100 million to be borrowed against. The IMF then funds the project by ordering the Federal Reserve to authorize the money with the project's bank in that country. The money is then in the form of a debt instrument, a letter of credit. The project is now funded, and the country can now draw down the money from that bank to pay the expenses. By the way, if you ever wondered where money comes from, this is it. It's not just the head of the Federal Reserve typing a figure on a computer. There has to be something of value to represent the value of the currency. It is the same way money is created for a home mortgage. The house has a value, and the value matches the value of the loan. This is how money is created and enters the world's financial system. It's neat, right? The country now receives $100 million to build the humanitarian project. This benefits the people, and that's wonderful. Sounds like a fantastic system of abundance. Money from nothing that the countries can pay back over time. Their people get the benefit of the new project. The people side of this Ponzi has the people in that country working hard to pay off the $100 million from the taxes. Also, years go by and that project is now old and useless. All the money made from the building of the project has been made and made its rounds through the banks and the economy. After all is said and done, who owns the asset? The trust where the asset was registered now owns the asset. After 66 years of this UN humanitarian project trading system pulling in assets, they finished in 2007, transferring all the assets of the world. All the assets are now registered to the trust. Ownership of the world has been registered to the trust. In addition to all the gold, land, and treasure, this includes, if you can believe it or not, all the people through the birth certificates and by way of religion, the people's souls. Apparently, we don't even give a break after death, as we are recycled into the next reincarnation to do the same system. This may sound a bit far-fetched. You may not want to believe it, but what is important for you to know, to have a fighting chance in this war, is that they believe it. What they say is real to them. They are the ones with all the levers of power at their fingertips. They do not need you to believe it now, but in the end, they will have you believe that they own you. Ultimately, they want you to know that you are their slave. They have separated themselves from us in every way. In the end, they want you to know that they are your masters because they want you to worship them as gods. In their religion, they worship what we call evil: the devil, Lucifer, Baal, Marduk, Baphomet, and Satan. In their religion, they are called good. To them, love and caring for one another is a weakness, and they call it bad. They treat us as a herd animal that they control. They decide what they will do with us. I said there are two sides. They are evil and we are good. They look at it the other way around. They say they are good and we are evil. For them to have complete control over us, they had to persuade generation after generation of followers to walk the dark path with them. They accomplished this by offering power and money, and then controlled their followers by the use of blackmail. This blackmail gave them ultimate control over their followers. Through bribes, they are able to entice new members again and again to follow their path. Through blackmail, they then control their followers. They work from the shadows and strive not to inform the rest of the people of the true agenda. The blackmail starts simply. After a stock tip or some other easy way to make money, a new follower starts to take his first steps down the path of the dark side. This could be a young junior congressman, a young businessman, a young preacher. Any new follower that will have power over other people is their target. Let us make this personal. Let's say you, the reader of this article, are the new congressman. They will try to entice you to join their side. It starts once you've accepted a small little token that gave you some reward of fame, prestige, money, and/or power. They would then ask you for something in return, something for something, a like-kind exchange. This is known as the Babylonian accounting system. Whatever they ask for will be something small that will be a little uncomfortable for you, a small compromise to your values. As a new congressman, you are asked to support a bill that you don't care much for, but it's only slightly against what you told your constituents as they elected you. You decided through your free will to take that step. At this time, you chose to take the dark path. Remember, they want you to change what you think is good, so this is the first step that will take you down this path. This is where you become ensnared by the dark side. The path gets very dark. It is the opposite of the path of light. On the path of light, we want to care for one another, love one another. We want the best for the people around us. On the path of the dark side, each step takes you down that dark path, eliminates a little more of the love you have for others, until at the end of your chosen path, you have no regard for others. Do whatever you want. Do what thou wilt, is their credo. The deep state will be laying down crumbs leading you down the path to their new world order. The next step is always bigger. It will require you to compromise your values further. They will remind you of the blackmail, that you receive stock tips. You think yourself, maybe you can survive them exposing you, but you find it easier to go along. Right there, you decided to go along with them. You're caught more firmly. The next time it's not about money. They ratchet up the compromise to the next level, sex. Soon you find yourself in a compromising positions with a young woman at some party. You didn't realize that the party location had video cameras everywhere. Your wife doesn't know about the video they shot showing your whole session with that young woman, and now the big legislative bill comes your way. This bill is completely against what you stated in your campaign to get elected. The deep state is now leaning on you to do your part. Do you resist? Do you make a stand now? Now your family is on the line. They're going to show the video to your wife. If you resist, your family is gone, your career is gone, your money is gone. But if you go along with them, you get more money and power. Are you still you? You're still a good person, right? You're still trying to do the right thing. You justify what you're going to do because, after all, you're still a good person, and you will make it up on the next legislation. You decide to take this next step. The next party rolls around, and you're rewarded with another young woman. You know you're going to be videoed, but what's the difference whether there's one video or two? The only problem is this time, the girl happens to be only 16 years old. Statutory rape. When you're informed about her age and the next bill the deep state wants you to support, you know there's no turning back. Are you still a good person? How do you justify what happens next when the next legislation goes through with more compromise to your previous self takes place? You're being rewarded left and right. You're getting more power, more fame, more money. You still take the next step. Your little indulgences in sexual exploration are now with younger and younger children. You're exposed to their culture. You start to see that their ways are correct, better, and good. It was just you were not so sophisticated before, but now your eyes are open. Now that movie with Tom Cruise called Eyes Wide Shut starts to make sense as you now see the world through their eyes. What you thought was good and bad before seems to have reversed. You're all in now, but that's not the end. The deep state has a darker road for you to follow. Now you follow their god, Lucifer. Now you're going to their ceremonies. Now you start drinking the blood from their sacrifices. You feel the power of the ceremonies and the intoxicants. You've risen through the ranks and are now considered one of the elite. Your views have all changed, but you still have to keep all of this new reality in the shadows. And you still see yourself as a good person. It's just what the meaning of good that has changed. Ultimately, the path has you longing for power over all things. Power to do anything and anything to anyone. Even with all this power, you cannot walk on the surface of the land. Only from the tunnels and the underground dungeons can you show your new self. Now you do everything from the shadows with others of your kind. What do you want now? Want the same thing all of your kind want, to help your God bring forth the light from the shadows. After all, you are a good person, and everyone should see you in the light. You want to make sure everyone knows that you and your elite friends are the ones in power over everyone in the world. The dark side only gets darker, because there's no end to the greed. There's no end to how much they want. Do what thou wilt, so that you can have power, fame, money, and ultimately each one wants the same thing, to be the one on the top of the pyramid. Moving up higher and higher, there are fewer and fewer of your peers at the same level as you. Each step leading up to the top of the pyramid, everyone looking for the day when they reach the top of the pyramid, because if no one is left above you, then you are God. Can you see how the path to the dark side can ensnare you and just about anyone that does not have a very strong moral foundation? Let's let you off the hook now. Let's look at them, the deep state. The deep state's next goal for the people of the world is to accept them as their gods, that they are the ones in power and are good. To do this, they have to normalize all the perversion. They want the general world population to recognize that the elite are above them, that they are the gods of them. For that to happen, the people have to accept them for what they are, so they have to come out of the shadows and be seen as good. This is their time. This has been planned for hundreds of years, and it's finally here. They have shut down the world. Now their war is spilling into the streets of every city as they push their agenda. To have everyone conform by wearing masks, they tell the cattle that it's for their own good, and you'll be saved by their vaccination. They ask everyone to be distanced from loving each other. They're showing themselves now. Destruction, death, illness, sacrificing of the elderly, sacrificing of the children, destroying history, giving you orders not to go to work, not to make a living, and of course, to kneel in front of them. This is their coming out party for the New World Order. It is now showing itself as the one world government, one world religion, one world corporation, and one world dominion. That is them, the deep state. That is who they are. They are the enemy. Now we can see them. Now we can win. By Dan Lutz, August 5th, 2020.